This is a 24th episode, and we don't have a theme song, so I'm singing this silly tune. Oh yeah! Alrighty, folks at home, welcome to the Minsk and Friends Best of 2024 Extravaganza episode. I'm your host, Minsk.
I'm Jonathan.
Huzzah! Here we are again for our traditional look back best of the year, best in gaming episode. This isn't our worst year in terms of podcast production, because we had the one year where we had only the best of episode, but unfortunately this year was another real hectic one, so this is only one of two episodes we've gotten done this year.
Yeah, I think we're both just really busy and our schedules just never line up.
It's a bit of a shame, but so it goes. But I'm glad we have the opportunity to pop in at least for this one, because we have been busy bees playing video games this year at least. So
yeah, absolutely.
How's 2024 been otherwise for you?
Well, remember how last year we said that 2024 is going to be a lot more quiet than 2023? Ha!
Oh yeah, because we were pretty stuffed with content last year, and it seemed like we were gonna that wave was going to crest, but
yeah, because I'm putting together my end of the year lists right now, and I'm also calculating how much I've written this year. I've reviewed over 60 games just this year alone. I've missed out on some really, really big ones. Like I didn't have any chance to check out Wukong, for example.
Right, yeah, and that's going to be on a lot of people's Game of the Year list, so,
Yeah, likely. And then in terms of films, I reviewed over 100 theatrical releases and at least about 30 streaming releases, like minimum. And I'm not sure entirely on those numbers yet because I haven't counted all of them. But it's been a busy year.
Impressive numbers, I have to say. So good job on that front.
Yeah, and I mean Gamescom was also madness because that wasn't like reviews, but that was like previews, and like that alone was 5 days, and I wrote like 40 pieces from there.
Yeah, so that's like 8 pieces per day of convention hopping. So yeah. You got a lot out of that.
Yeah, I do remember sleeping for 3 days after I came back from there. So, yeah.
Right, yeah. And I suppose we shouldn't ignore you also actually got to go to Cannes this year as well. So
did. And I'm now really I'm already working for, going next year because I've gotten the invite to a couple of events that are happening there next year. Like people are
sick.
already they're already like, we're going to be bringing our film there. We would like you to come too. And that was just a case of, I need to make the finances work because it's quite an ordeal to spend 2 weeks in the south of France.
Yeah, I understand the logistics wasn't super easy, so it's super great that you were able to do it at least once in your life,
Yeah, I hope it's not going to be a one-time thing, but it especially in this present day where journalists are not really well-funded, and especially freelance journalists are not very well-funded, so let's see. It would be very nice to go, and I think that there would be a lot of really cool films, because a lot of the things that I did review and were really hyped about ended up getting selected to at least like Finnish festivals, and I was really happy to see that like some of the festivals had actually like lifted my reviews from Cannes into the catalogs to show like hey, this is a film that this person really loved and we brought it here as well. So it was a nice validation that somebody reads this stuff.
Yeah, it's always super good when you get a pop like that. So really happy for you.
Well, thank you. And you've had a busy year.
Yeah, I in a way. I'm not a professional reviewer like you, so it's not like I have this giant glut of content coming from me, but like I kept busy with the channel. We celebrated the 10th anniversary of it around the halfway point, which was very delightful. I really liked the little retrospective thing I did for that. I'm glad that also seemed to be people seem to be happy with that, and in terms of some of the games I've played this year, I think I picked some real bangers this year, and I'm really happy to see that it's also resonated with folks on YouTube, because like Northern Journey it didn't get like a ton of views, but it got like a consistently high amount of likes per view, and I got like tons of comments from like unique comments from like separate people. So like I was really happy. Clearly there was an audience for a playthrough of that game, and it turned out that it was like a perfect match for me, and it like really clicked with people. So I'm like super happy that I got to like provide some unique perspective playthrough content wise this year.
Yeah, I also noticed that your Chained Echoes playthrough got a lot of views as well, and that was something that people really seemed to enjoy.
Yeah, I'm really happy with that too. Like, obviously, I realize I know the whole meta game of YouTube, like these super long form turn-based RPGs are not great for like consistent content, because I think people like something that's shorter and I don't know, flashier is the right word, maybe. I don't know, but like, you know, it's always, I think it's a commitment for a viewer to like start to watch like, hey, here's this giant RPG that's like over 100 episodes. But for whatever reason, like Chained Echoes, also like there was clearly an audience for that is I was again super happy to provide for.
Yeah, it's really cool. I've also really enjoyed your Ghost of Tsushima playthrough. It's been a lot of fun to watch.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to hear that, because that was actually I believe that was our first year of this show when we did our best of. You put Ghost of Tsushima in your top 5, and I remember commenting that I really, really want that to get a PC port.
And here we are.
And it happened, finally. Thanks to Sony, I guess. So I'll shill for the big guys there for a minute, because, you know, it is thanks to their new whole PC port initiative that this opportunity happened. But yeah, it's a great game. So I'm really happy to be able to play that now and just see how groovy the like Jidaigeki Japan romp can be.
Yeah, and I've really enjoyed that part, because like I've played it multiple times, and I played it again on the PC as well. And it's been really a lot of fun watching you experience it for the first time, and just having the kind of living through you moment of going like, I remember when I saw this the first time, and I remember this how it happened. So it's been a lot of fun, and I'm glad to see that you've enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's really neat moments. There's really funny. I don't think the episode's out yet, but there's one episode where I finally decide to play with a controller, and I actually managed to make like 15 minutes of me just finagling with settings, because I thought it was really amusing how many options there were for actually like setting up controller inputs there. So I'll have to see how that lands with people. I think I put a warning at the start of the episodes that you might want to skip past this if playing with the settings isn't your cup of tea. But yeah. Also, I should mention, of course, I started my new mini project thing was metal albums with birds on the cover, and which is exactly what it says. I thought it'd be really fun to do like a music review idea where with the hook of like focusing only on music, which decides to have a bird on the cover for whatever reason. And it's been quite a fun project to just like, because it's been a great opportunity for me to listen to a really wide variety of music, and I've gotten to practice talking about music in a critical point of view, which isn't my wheelhouse really, but I've been having fun doing it.
Well, it's surprising you say that it's not in your wheelhouse, because like I could have been fooled. Like I've really enjoyed listening to that stuff, and
okay,
like, and then there's so much there that you already bring up that like I would not even consider at all listening to music. So I think it's really, really good. And really, if anybody's listening and has not gone and listened to this stuff yet, you really should, because there's a lot of bands that are really cool that I haven't heard of yet, and that I've now put onto my playlist because of what you've been talking about them.
Yeah. I think that was my whole, like, I thought that I can't just do a show that's just like, well, here's what I thought was interesting this month. Like, I thought it had to have some kind of like, I say hook because gimmick sounds a little bit more negative in tone, but you know, then I figured that, you know, I was kind of bird watching, so to speak, when I started to notice how many albums have a bird on the cover, and I happen to be rather fond of birds, so I was like, well, I wonder if like you could like extrapolate like any trends or like in quality or genre, or like if it would just be like a fun reason to like listen to stuff that might not normally land for me if this was the selection criteria. And for 5 episodes now, I think it's been a fun thing to do. So I am happy to report that I will be doing it at least for the near future still, as long as it keeps interesting for me.
Cool. I'll keep listening.
Good stuff. But that's been 24. I'm glad we're staying positive because this hasn't been the most positive of years in certain ways over the world.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into it too much because
it's been hard. It's been hard for gaming too. Like it's been another crazy year of layoffs, and it's been a lot of really depressing news on that front. And it just every time you think that maybe now things will turn around, it doesn't.
Yeah. Oh, the most miserable moment for my channel probably this year was that I was recording a playthrough of Ghostwire Tokyo exactly at the time that the shutdown of the studio Tango Gameworks happened. So I had to address that in an episode, which I really wish I didn't have to do during the playthrough that I'm celebrating this super fun game, but that's just how it went. So that really sucked.
Yeah, but I mean, we did see some light at the end of the tunnel with that because Krafton then bought Tango Gameworks, and they're going to be continuing and making new Hi-Fi Rush games.
Yeah, it's like it looks like, and I think Shinji Mikami's gonna be fine with his pedigree. I'm worried more about everybody else at the studio, but it seems like they've there's hope for a lot of the people working there. Like at least the rest of the industry seems to recognize the talent that was in that company.
Yeah, and Microsoft very rightfully got a lot of crap for it because they had only a couple of months earlier made those massive purchases and were saying how we're going to support these to make art, and then Hi-Fi Rush was a critical and somewhat of a commercial success because it was such a cheap game to make. Yeah,
it was their weird little B project after they were done with Ghostwire, and it turned out to be the bigger hit critically, basically.
Yeah, and then it's such a dumb thing that when Krafton now bought Tango Gameworks, Microsoft, despite canceling everything, decided that they want to sit on Ghostwire and Evil Within, that they won't even let those go. And it's so pointlessly petty and just bad business all around. If you're not going to do anything with these things, why won't you let somebody else go and do something with them?
Oh man, well, Capcom fans have had to live with that fate for a while now, so the IPs being sat on, but okay, but no, let's get back to positive mode here. I'm glad that we acknowledge that it hasn't been easy for pretty much anybody, but there was a lot of good in this year as well. So let's give that its moment to shine. And I heard before we started recording that you have a crap ton of games that you've been listing because you have been planning, I believe, a top 20 list.
Yes, I'll have a top 20 list. It's going on to Toisto, and it's going to go to other places. For our sake, we're just going to focus on the top 10. But yeah, there were so many games this year that I played that when I was putting together my top 10 list, I realized that I would like to at least mention the next 10 games that were good in their own way, that I've given them 4 and 5 star reviews, but they just didn't make that top 10 list, at least not today. Who knows, if I made the list in a week, it would probably be different.
Yeah, it gets hard when it gets that granular, because I'm sure they're all quality, so it's how do you rank them when it's not that simple? But but we'll talk about the top 10 for this episode. But if you guys want even more tips, then please do go look at Jonathan's various websites and stuff to find more. But talking about the top 10, because I don't have a full 10, I have a few below my top 5 that I can mention. So I think once again it'd be great if you started with your 10 through 6. And then we'll move on to the top 5. We'll share those thoughts. I got to guess this year what your number one's going to be, so I'm really curious to hear which one it is in the end.
All right, so I'll go from 10 to 6, and let's just see how that goes. So
yeah.
At number 10, I have a small, I think this was a Polish game called The Thaumaturge.
Oh, I saw the name of that. That's the Disco Elysium like, right?
Yeah, it's a Disco Elysium style, a very narrative heavy RPG where you are in like mid-century or turn of the century Russia, and you are solving crimes and mysteries with Rasputin.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, I only knew that it was kind of a fantasy steampunk thing going on. I didn't realize it had real life connections. I didn't realize Rasputin cameos in it. That's interesting.
Yeah, and it's all about Rasputin is like almost it's like almost like a buddy cop comedy with or buddy cop story with a Rasputin as the second guy.
So he's filling in for Kim Kitsuragi's role if we keep
in a
comparing
way
these. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just really well crafted, really well written. You can tell where, they kind of butt heads with the budget in terms of where they've had to cut corners or where their design just kind of doesn't work as well as they probably envisioned it. But it was just one of those games where you're like, this is why indie games are so exciting, because who knew that this was the kind of RPG that I really wanted.
Well, I mean, it got a lot of rightful comparisons to Disco Elysium, as we said again. So, but I'm super glad that that turned out to not just be a superficial thing. That could have maybe been the scare there, that they were just kind of trying to ride the crest, but of popularity that game had. But it turns out that they put in real work there of their own. Then, so that's super good.
Yeah, it was a really, really good game. I really warmly recommend it. I think it's on sale right now, and it wasn't an expensive game to begin with. So for below 20 euros, you get a really solid 10 to 15 hours of really good role playing.
Good.
Yeah. And then moving right along to number 9, The Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom.
Ah, great. Okay, yeah, the final Zelda finally gets her time to shine one.
Yeah, and I had my issues with the fact that not all the powers in the game are as well thought out as I would have hoped for. You can tell that this was kind of apparently the project was cobbled together from a couple of different concepts at the last minute, and you can kind of tell that, but it's so charming and it's so fun and it's so close to Link's Awakening that I really, really loved it.
I feel that this was actually I can actually talk about this now. This was gonna be in my below the top 5 ones. I was gonna also mention Echoes of Wisdom because I haven't played quite enough of it to form a good opinion. As you mentioned, some of the systems seem superfluous. The mechanic where you shoot out your buddy Try to manipulate objects in the environment seems both unnecessary in a game where the whole main hook is generating objects, and also it just kind of controls really weirdly. So I definitely feel that I was I don't really know if this needed to be in this game, that whole mechanic.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. That was one of those mechanics that I really didn't kind of understand or like.
Yeah, it could. Yeah, it's just kind of unnecessary given the the meat and potatoes of it, the whole item summoning thing. But it's an interesting idea, the whole item summoning thing. It's a big swing in terms of because it also means you have to plan out puzzles really differently from the regular Zelda way of here's the dungeon with the one puzzle hook thing depending on the item. So it's a good effort, and yeah, it's super charming, and playing as Zelda is great. I like that.
It also has one of my favorite soundtracks of the year.
Yeah, it's an all right. Yeah, I haven't played enough to hear the real bangers, but it does its job certainly. Very pleasant.
All right, and then at number 8 is Tekken 8.
How very appropriate. Shows up in your spot 8. All right, then.
Yeah, it was not planned that way, but here we are. But yeah, this was, again, it's a new Tekken game, but it's just really satisfying all around. I thought we had a great time when we played it together earlier this year, and it was one of those where it came out, and it was as if it had always existed, and that's not like a diss at it. It's more like it's so ubiquitous with the fighting game genre that you're like, of course, Tekken exists, Tekken is here, and like, but I've gone back to it multiple times over the year. I've played it. I got my ass handed to me like by better players, but it's one of those games where, again, it feels nice to get better at, and it is as long as you don't end up getting into a really sweaty lobby, it is it is a lot of fun, and I think that for Tekken, what it is, I really like how ridiculous the story is, and I've really enjoyed going back to it.
It's got that same thing that Yakuza kind of does, that it takes itself super self-seriously, but at the same time, like on a drop of a dime, it'll just become really silly, like with some of the stuff, like, and it just somehow works despite being so, flip-floppy on that tone front. Like,
absolutely,
it's very creative. It's a really good one. I'm super happy with it.
Yeah, number 7, Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door.
Oh, wait a second now. Oh, right, because it got the like big it got like a big old remake with this one as well.
Yeah,
right.
I was trying this year to not include like early access titles or obvious remakes from like a couple of years ago, but this was almost 20 years for the Thousand Year Door, and like the last time I played this, I was in high school, so it was really important for me to like first. When I went to play it again, I was like, "Oh God, please don't ruin my images of what this used to be," because I really loved Paper Mario, and luckily it didn't. And the updates that they've done to it are really smart. They've polished up the translation a lot. The jokes are even funnier. It's just all around one of the better Mario games there is. And like, I'm a big fan of Mario RPG, and this is like right there on that level. And I'm always amused by how naughty the humor is, considering that it is an like for all ages kind of game.
Yeah, it's Mario, which normally has an incredibly squeaky clean, image. So it Thousand Year Door takes some big swings on that front as well, but I think it's all the better for it. Like maybe my favorite joke is is his name Koops? Is the Koopa guy you get in your party?
Yes.
You go you're on that quest to find his missing father, and you find the dead body with the note addressed to the dead body's son. Do you remember this gag?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it ends with like, oh, no, wait, this is someone else's dad. Never mind. They just move along. Like, that it was so dark. That was so, like, macabre for a Mario, but it's great.
It is. And that's, like, in the very beginning, too, which is great because it kind of sets the tone for, oh, we're going to be doing this kind of an adventure.
Yeah, it's not pulling punches on, like, this kind of gallows humor. Really good.
Absolutely. All right, and then number 6, I have Metaphor Refantasio.
Oh, yeah, this was a kind of a surprise for a lot of people. I think, people who are fans of Persona were definitely keeping their eyes on it, but I don't think people were expecting it to be the Game of the Year contender that it's been taken as now.
This one came really late because I didn't review this, but then like everyone was going nuts for it. Like even people who I know who don't like Persona games or don't like RPGs in general were like, this is something special. And at that point, I'm like, okay, I'll have to go in. So I went and bought a copy for myself and sat down thinking I'm going to, take a look at it. And I ended up binging through it in like a week. Of just like solid playing of it, and like it's crazy how like this is a game that starts with your typical "let's go kill God" kind of thing,
and then your RPG motivation,
right? And then before you know it, you're actually knee deep in like huge debates on social Darwinism, atheism, whether or not democracy works, and like really crazy stuff like that, while you're also in the ruins of Shinjuku looking for artifacts of some ancient world that doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, I didn't actually know this, that it's like post-apocalyptic real world. I thought it was just like a fantasy setting. That's interesting.
It's not even clear if it is or if it isn't. It's like it's so much of it is like you can read it in a ton of different ways, and then like
Interesting.
and they have like the game music has like music written in Esperanto and chanted by Buddhist monks and stuff like that. It's
Huh.
wild. It is so all over the place, and like in any other hands it would be a disaster, but then like Atlus and Katsura Hashino, who directed it, they know exactly the kind of game they wanted to make, and it is wild.
Okay, damn. Well, I mean, I've heard all the good stuff, but still good to hear more about it. Kind of very interested in it.
And because Hashino also produced one of my favorite games from the mid 2000s, Catherine.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. That was kind of tied into Persona, yeah.
Yeah, and Catherine was also one of those games that really should have, not worked. It's also a really wild swing, and then
It is.
It turned out to be one of my favorites of that console generation. So I was really excited to see what he would do, and yeah, this was great. It was really, 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 really good. So warm recommendation.
Good stuff. Yeah, all right. Fantastic. I guess I'll rattle off, the few of mine that didn't make the top 5 as well here. I mentioned already Zelda I was gonna drop that here, but we got to that, so that's good. Another game that I have been playing a lot, but not enough that I really feel confident ranking it, and also it's good, but maybe not top 5 good. Grand Blue Fantasy Relink is a game that's going to be actually on the channel. I think the first episode may have dropped by the time this comes out. Maybe. We'll see. If not, this is a preview for an upcoming game on the channel. But it's the action, character action spin-off of Grand Blue Fantasy, which is the really popular mobile gacha RPG in Japan. And I think it's really cool to see, like, it's a well-realized kind of character action Monster Hunter-ish RPG that, like, really, it feels like an advertisement for the mobile game often, because they talk about stuff that happened and characters and stuff that sound really cool but has happened in the story already. And but I don't think it's a huge detriment, because I do think the story itself here is quite nice. The character, the design of the world is super beautiful. It's got a really unique, almost painterly anime look to it that's really wonderful. And I think the gacha nature of a million characters has been translated surprisingly well to a character action game, given that you have, I think, like 20 different characters who have different play styles here in this game. So it's a really good effort. I would say maybe the Monster Hunter mechanics that they want to tack on to have like this kind of like party-based adventuring doesn't fit super well with having like a really linear plot with it. So that's where my main clash is, that the gameplay loop kind of suffers from it. But it's not a huge one. You can focus on the main story if you want, and I'm having a good time.
Wasn't this a multiplayer game, or did I read that wrong?
Yes, it is. It is multiplayer. Like there is totally like a playthrough. There is like a campaign, a single player campaign with like cutscenes and everything. But there is like this like squatting up multiplayer Monster Hunter-ish go out on a mission gameplay part of it as well, that you can kind of do between the story beats. And I'm going to guess once you beat the main story, there's going to be a huge, end game multiplayer component to it.
Ah, all right. Cool.
Yeah, it works. It works pretty. I feel like it. I feel like I would have liked it more if it was pure, like, cool narrative single player thing, but like it works like this as well.
Sweet.
Yeah. Outside of that, I do want to mention how much I liked Gundam Breaker 4, the big Gundam game of this year, but I think it doesn't quite work as a video game, so I have a hard time selling it to people. The idea of this Gundam game is it's very much inspired by the miniatures building aspect of building your like own little robot Gundam mobile suit figure, and the idea is kind of like, what if you could build whatever kind of, from the pieces, you could assemble your own custom robot and then like actually control it in a game. And in practice, it's implemented super well. Like the amount of kits that you can get parts from and assemble are incredibly diverse and creative, and the mechanics modeling of all the parts is done superbly. Like, if there's parts that have a weapon attached to it, that weapon will be functional inside the gameplay portion of it. So you can like make a robot that's just covered with guns in all the parts, and you will be able to like use all of those in the actual gameplay loop.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the customization is like wild. If you like building, if you like tinkering with miniatures, this is like a fantastic virtual miniature building thing. I think the gameplay loop then isn't super satisfying because the plot isn't super interesting. So all the missions are kind of an excuse to just collect more parts to build a new miniature. And then the gameplay, I don't know, it's kind of a rudimentary like character action game, so it doesn't wow me. So unfortunately, it's kind of like I have a ton of fun building this like dream robot, and then it kind of feels like I don't like get that much out of it in the actual gameplay, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, that makes perfect sense.
So, but I think if you're a fan of the franchise and you're a fan of these kits, I think like I'm still happy to do all of that, and I'm still happy to see where it goes. But like, I think it's a hard sell for someone who isn't already into this scene.
Yeah.
And finally, I really debated which one would be my number 5, this one or the actual number 5. I think just because it's such a simple game, I'm going to drop it here to what would be my number 6. And also, I don't want any accusations of nepotism, but Snufkin Melodies of Moomin Valley would be my number 6 spot.
Nice. Yeah, that's a really good one.
It's a really good one. It doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles to it because it's just like a simple adventure game, but like the realization of the Moomin setting is about as good as it's going to be for a video game, and I think it's about anything a fan of the genre could ask for. And Snufkin is my favorite character, so playing as him is pretty fantastic.
Yeah, I really loved that game as well. I actually got that from my nephew as a Christmas gift.
Okay, yeah, I would say it's a great choice for the kids in the family, and or the child-hearted as well. I think we'll get something out of it.
Yeah, it just missed out on my top 10, but it is in the top 20.
Okay, that's good to hear. I'm not surprised. It is a quality game, certainly, even if it's not the big spectacle of the year, but yeah. And I'm happy to see it's getting like DLC support even. That's interesting. I didn't expect it, but that's welcome, certainly.
It also got a really lovely physical release, which came with a little tote bag, Moomin-themed tote bag, and like when you open the box opens up to a diorama of the bridge where Snufkin likes to sit.
Oh, that's beautiful. Damn. Okay, well, I bought it digitally, so I missed out on that. But all right, good for anybody who got that. That sounds wonderful.
Yep. But go on right away into your top 5.
Yeah, it's time. We went through quickly with the honorable mentions, which definitely deserved it. But let's get into it for real. My number 5. So this one is the one that I put above Snufkin here. I think my number 5 is Dungeons of Hinterberg.
Oh, I didn't get to play this one, but I've heard that it's really good.
It is. It's a budget game for sure, but like the where it counts, like they've put the effort into it. So it's really lovely as this like it's almost a puzzle adventure game more so than an action game. There's an action game component to it, because you're fighting like little creatures in the Alps. But I feel like the real bulk of it goes into exploring the environs and figuring out the puzzles in the levels. And it's delightful. So I should clarify for context, of course, like, my big dream has been to go on a big driving vacation in the Alps, and as I've documented this year, I got fairly close to that by taking a vacation to Vienna. Not really the Alps, but close to the mountains, so got to feel that for a bit. So it's almost prophetic that this year, this game came out that is is set in a rustic, alpine village. It's all about, like, going, touristing about in the Alps. That's super fascinating. It's a really interesting look. It's made by Austrians, so it is like a look. It's like, a look at their own culture in a way, and it's really delightful.
It's super pretty too. Like the visual art style is like, it's like Jet Set Radio set in the Alps.
Exactly. It is like very unique art style that, like, really kind of makes the the Central European landscape look really creative, but at the same time, it's got this unique and kind of really splashy look to it, and it's quite delightful. And I think the story goes in some interesting places because, like, the story is that a bunch of magical dungeons appear in this like region of the Alps, and like it turns into a big tourist thing because tourists flock there to like use magic to explore dungeons and fight monsters. So it's like a parallel to the big winter sports industry that dominates the real life Alps. And even though it's like made by Austrians, and it definitely feels like a bit of a travel brochure of look at how wonderful our country is, it actually has like a lot of like really nuanced takes on the downsides of how like tourism kind of creeps into an established community and can like kind of like smother the local local culture, because there's like a lot of people grumpy about the fact that like this whole monster hunting thing wasn't something that people did in these mountains until this incident happened, and now there's all these people from abroad running around like doing this weird activity. And I think like one of the greatest moments is like when they have their like traditional, this is a bit of a spoiler for the early part of the game, but they have their like traditional like onion festival in this village, and you have have everybody being really excited, the locals, about it. And then the mayor like reveals this really tacky monster hunting statue as part of the like ceremony. And the next day your innkeeper has like this like moment where she really like, well, not breaks down, but she like really like pours her heart out about how like this one cultural thing that was like theirs, even that has now been lost to this new industry that is like dominating it. So, but at the same time, like it also like really goes into like how important like tourism can be for like a person's mental health, like how that allows you to re-examine yourself and like discover new things. So it's a really nuanced game for being, just like a simple adventure in the Alps thing. So I think it's got a lot of legs to it.
That sounds really cool. I'll have to actually go and buy that game when I have some time in between everything, like during the Christmas break, because I've been really wanting to play it, and now this just gets me more hyped to actually go and have some time with it.
I definitely recommend it. Again, the actual character action, like fighting monsters part, I think is a bit like Gundam. It's a bit rudimentary. It's not like it's a serviceable fighting monsters thing, and it does appear a lot in the game, obviously. So I think that's why I drop it to my number 5 here. But like the vibes of it are immaculate. So yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's my choice for number 5. What would you say is the 5th best game of the year?
The 5th best for me is Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown.
Oh, right, of course. This has been getting a lot of rave reviews for it.
And this was one of those, again, like it came out pretty early in the year, and it was already then like you knew that this is going to be one of the best games of the year because it's a classic platformer game. You know, it has all the best elements of Prince of Persia.
Going back to the roots, like the very original Prince of Persia games were side-scrolling platformers.
Yeah, and some of the best level design that I have seen in years in any kind of Metroidvania style thing. Surprisingly effective plot, really, really fantastic mix of art styles. Like it goes from anime to European art styles in like a single scene, memorable characters, and tons to do. And it's difficult, but it's never punishing, and it doesn't feel unfair at any point. It's one of the most well-balanced experiences all year when it comes to any kind of an action-adventure title.
Okay.
And just like I have played it, I've completed it once, and then I've just gone back to play some of the, like, explore the area because the platforming and the puzzle mechanics are just so much fun that it's almost relaxing and kind of therapeutic in a way just to go and like get into the groove again.
Okay, I'm really happy to hear that. Always happy for a good Metroidvania to get on the scene. Like this is a really good time for Metroidvanias, but I feel like they don't quite hit that like everybody's talking about it threshold. So this one doing it super good.
Yeah, and it's one of those where like I was not expecting a good Prince of Persia anymore because it's been so long. And we actually got 2 Prince of Persia titles this year. We got the Rogue Prince of Persia.
Oh yeah, the roguelike thing.
Yeah, which I thought was interesting, but it's really unfinished. It's in early access. Mm-hmm. So like, and that was one of the things this year that I would not put any early access titles on my best of list because they are not finished. We'll come back to them when they are fully out.
Yeah, makes sense.
But the Rogue one is interesting, and it's got some really good pedigree behind it because it's got people from Dead Cells making it, and Dead Cells was one of my favorite games a couple of years ago when it came out. It's a pretty
good roguelite.
Yeah, so I'm excited for it. We'll see next year, but this year it belongs to The Lost Crown.
Makes sense. Now, I hate to go back to being a negative Nancy here a little bit, but of course Ubisoft is still infamous for like the not good work culture that was a problem a couple of years ago. And I have still been kind of shying away from Ubisoft games. Maybe a stupid principle, but a principle nonetheless. Now, do you know if there's been any development on that front that Ubisoft's conditions have improved so that I might feel a little better about like getting the Lost Crown?
Well, this is actually interesting. I interviewed a CEO, the CEO of Red Links. That is a subsidiary of Ubisoft
here in Finland. Yeah, they make the Trials games, right?
Yes, and they're working on a couple of bigger projects inside Ubisoft as well. But I interviewed her, and I specifically asked her about this thing that like how has that affected them, because Ubisoft is such a massive company, and like how does she feel?
That's the thing, yeah.
And her response was a really great one. Is that because Ubisoft is such a national, like it's multinational, it's and like they have to look at it in the way that they have to support the employees when these kind of things come out. And what they had done in Finland was that they had started these initiatives within their own company about how to make sure that they don't ever fall prey to that kind of working conditions.
Interesting.
And then during their internal reviews where they talk to other Ubisoft companies, they get to pass on these things of this is how we solved it, this is how we made things better, this is how we made our managers accountable. And her point was that that's how they're making change within the company. And there's also there was heavy talk of like they did not use the word unionizing, although in Finland, of course, we have really strong unions, and most of their employees belong to the Finnish Game Developers Union.
Okay,
but the implication was that this kind of, if not in name, at least in spirit, the unionizing between companies prevents these things from happening again. So, I of course don't know how these things happen and how these things work out in practice, but listening to somebody who's in that position and like acknowledge these issues and to bring out concrete evidence of what has been done made me feel a lot better about at least what can be done in the future. Of course, it leads to a lot more difficult conversations because some of the people at the top in these particular companies where this harassment and these working conditions happened, they of course got away scot-free. They got a golden handshake and they were moved elsewhere where they got to continue doing what they do. And that's just going to be every time with big corporations because we live in a world where bad behavior is rewarded.
Yeah, and too big to fail is a thing somehow. Yeah.
So I am approaching it on my end with looking at these things of how much can I affect it and how much is it like how different the company is. Like, for example, I know the Red Lynx is going to be a completely different kind of Ubisoft company than, for example, the company where these things originated from.
Ubisoft Montpellier is the one I looked up here that made Lost Crown. Yeah, the guys who previously made a bunch of Rayman and Valiant Hearts. So, yeah, obviously a different place, different country, everything different swagger.
Yes, and Montpellier has, to my knowledge, has not had these issues. Because they're a much smaller place, and they've kind of they've really just done Rayman, and then like porting stuff in the last couple of years. They did a really great Valiant Hearts release, The Great War, I think, which was a fantastic adventure game.
Yeah, it is. It's a great one.
Yeah. So again, like since I don't know, I'm going to have to go with that. I will cover and do these things until I find out differently. Let's put it that way. Like if somebody comes to me tomorrow and says, hey, I'm glad you like the Lost Crown, but to make it, we had to literally kill hundreds of kittens. Like it was our team bonding exercise, was just killing kittens. That's gonna affect how I enjoy the game in the future.
Yeah, definitely.
So a long-winded answer to I don't know. I really hope that things are getting better, but like I feel a little helpless in front of that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like it's not like my boycotting is doing anything either. Really, it's just mainly my own like just feeling grody when I've heard the news.
Absolutely, and like that's something I try and ask developers when I meet them. Is just how are you doing, and have things gotten better? And luckily, at least the ones that I have spoken to this year have spoken about how certain conditions have gotten better, even though we are in this state of a huge uncertainty and huge layoffs. There is still some optimism, mostly in the indie circuit, because the indie developers are seeing a lot more people flock to their titles now. So
yeah, fancy that. Weird how that's happening in all this situation, but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, good. Sorry again to be a bit of a downer, but I couldn't let a Ubisoft game be talked about with a little bit of at least pushback on this front. But very happy to hear that things seem to be improving in some front at least. So yeah, I might have to reconsider my stance a little bit as well, because the Lost Crown really does seem to be a fantastic.
Yeah, and I get that. Like I still have not touched the Harry Potter game, the Hogwarts Legacy.
Oh yeah, different place obviously, but also some very toxic backgrounds there. So
I get that. We all have a kind of our own hang-ups, and it's. I don't think anybody should ever feel forced to play anything because of everybody else doing it. It's absolutely. I totally understand that at some point there comes a level where it's just your personal beliefs, which are really important to hold on to.
Yeah,
and they come there, and I will not judge anybody for having them. Like I know I have my own points, and I have been completely fine with not touching the Hogwarts Legacy.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm pretty tapped out on Harry Potter in general, but before the J.K. Rowling stuff started to happen, I was like, it's all right. So I wouldn't have. It's not really a boycott because I wouldn't have played that anyway. But
Yeah.
yeah. All right. Well, great to hear about Prince of Persia in any case, and that was your number 5, I believe.
That was my number 5, yes.
So why don't we go to your number 4 then?
Number 4 is Balatro.
Oh, Balatro. Okay, yeah. This is your kind of wacky indie pick, then, I guess.
Yeah, because so I'm really like, if somebody starts explaining to me board game rules or card game rules, because I'm autistic, I have ADHD, I will have a hard time following it, and
Right.
even if I want to get into it, the more difficult the rules are, the more likely it'll be that I won't be able to follow it.
Right.
It's
fall off the wagon.
yeah, and that's why I like video games a little bit better, because I can usually learn them, through interaction. And that's not always the case with some games, especially if they're difficult in presentation. And that's why when I bump into a card game that is inclusive and well made, I think it's something that is more of a rarity than anything else.
Interesting. I haven't heard about Balatro from that angle, really, but that's a really interesting thing to hear about it.
Yeah, and so if you don't know what Balatro is the big indie game that took the world by storm this year. It's as effectively what happens if you take poker and solitaire and you put them together with a roguelike. So you have the rules of basically poker.
Yeah.
But you're playing alone against the computer, and every run, the idea is that you have to defeat the hands of the computer playing against you. But you get different cards that affect the deck in different ways. For example, like a Joker card might cause it so that every spade, regardless of what it is, as long as it's a spade, that card gives you double points, for example. Or,
Right.
for example, a Queen of Hearts or the Royal Heart cards will give you double the multiplier when you count the points at the end. And it can get really crazy with the way you min-max your decks to make them more powerful, or to create different kinds of negative traits for your deck, because in the end, if you have a lot of negatives, you can really go for broke by taking huge damage and having only one chance to make a hand, but then that hand gets 16,000 points in multipliers because you've taken so many negative traits on.
Right. So it's even because in some way it's like a poker with random modifiers, but there even is like an element, the deck building aspect of removing the randomness in there.
Yeah, and then between games, you can add new stuff to your deck, like holographic or steel cards that give you extra chips, or planet cards that increase points of particular hands, or tarot cards that then transform your other cards into, totally unique, different kind of multipliers, to the point that it becomes like, is it Yu-Gi-Oh? The thing where they fight with cards, essentially?
The most famous one of the genre, yes.
Yeah, so it becomes like that, and it becomes really, really wild, and it really satisfying, because every time you make like a crazy chain of different kinds of cards and get the multipliers up, the multiplier counter on your left starts, it catches fire because it's gotten so high in the amount. And you have these satisfying ding sounds coming in, so it's really visceral and really immediate. And a single round can last anywhere from a couple of minutes to maybe 25 minutes. So it's really easy to pick up and play, and it's really easy to look at. So it works on I've played it on my smartphone. I've played it on the Nintendo Switch. I've played it on browser, on Steam. Like, it works everywhere. And it's one of those games that you sit down going, I'm going to play, a round or two, and then 6 hours have gone by.
Yeah. This seems absolutely in that territory of Vampire Survivors a year or two ago, of it's such a simple and small thing, but it's been packed with so much depth in it.
Yeah, and it's like €10 to buy, and like I have gotten hundreds of hours of playing, because like it's also the perfect game on commute. And like I had it with me. That was my flight to. I went to London earlier in the autumn, and I had this and Vampire Survivors as my games for the flight. I honestly cannot even remember the flight between takeoff and landing, because it was just I was so hyper focused on these two.
That makes sense. Yeah, I can believe that super well.
Yeah, so yeah, that's my number 4, and it is one of the most accessible games for almost anybody. Like, even if you don't play games, I think you might enjoy this.
Cool. Good stuff. Good to have this one here. I definitely deserves a spot.
How about you?
Shall I jump to my number 4 then?
Yes.
Yeah, let's go. This is where I'm putting Nine Souls, the game we reviewed in the summer in our episode.
I thought so.
Yeah, another Metroidvania being repped today. Good stuff. Nine Souls was the Taiwanese-made, like, Taoist-inspired, cyberpunky, but very kind of, like, Chinese-vibed Metroidvania with, like, really interesting, like, parry mechanics in it. And well, I don't have a ton to add from our review from the summer. It's got like a razor sharp gameplay that feels really satisfying. It's got that feel when you get from like a Souls-like of like when you encounter a really tough boss, but then you just like put your mind to it and you like improve and you like win through. So it like I get that vibe pretty much every time a new giant scary horrible monster shows up and I'm like, oh no. And it's got a really, really beautiful art style and presentation. Again, like a really unique world design that haven't really encountered all that much. So it's just a feast on the eyes. And the story is really charming as well. It's really dark. Like I think they give you like a content warning at the start. It is surprisingly like dark and gruesome for what's such a cute looking game. But it still works all the same.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it too. I think you enjoyed it more than I did, but
I think so, yeah.
But it's still like, oh man, what a good game.
Yeah, really great work. We, I'm one of those marks in the Metroidvania scene who really, really likes Hollow Knight. Those fans have a bit of a reputation for being overbearing on their game over, other Metroidvanias. I try not to be that, but I do admit that I'm really, really just constantly when the One Day Silk Song would come out.
One day, it's coming.
One day, guys. But, in between, like this, it's again, it's not that Hollow Knight-y, except for having like a kind of a handcrafted art look to it and being a Metroidvania, but like it really is like it's in its own beast in the gameplay nuances. But it fills a gap in that kind of game that I'm looking for right now. And I had a super good time playing it.
It's a super solid choice. And another indie darling.
Yeah, I got plenty of those there. In fact, my number 3 is also going to be a one. Shall I jump to that one next?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, let's talk then about one of the 2 games I was really anticipating at the end of the year, Metal Slug Tactics.
Oh,
yeah. This was, as soon as it was announced, I was like, oh, that looks fantastic. And it pretty much delivers what I wanted from it. So it is Metal Slug, the classic side-scrolling shoot-'em-up by SNK, is imagined into a turn-based tactics game. So for fans of Into the Breach or like Advance Wars, maybe, a little bit of that there too. It's really engaging. It has a roguelike structure, which like I kind of didn't realize that, I think, but it does actually kind of fit really well. You level up your guys as you do like a few sets of missions in a few set of worlds. You pick from a team with some really robust choices, like really interesting like abilities with all the characters, and it's like fun to figure out how they play off each other. And there's like that really addicting roguelike loop of like when you're doing well, you're just building up more and more abilities and like equipment and stuff that like really creatively plays off each other, and it just makes it that much more diverse. The gameplay when you like get to like play your build characters in it.
Yeah, it looks super interesting. I haven't played it, but I remember seeing the trailer for it and just loving how they've managed to move the art style from the classic side scroller to the isometric view.
Yeah, it that definitely also deserves a lot of commendation from here, is that for fans of Metal Slug, this like definitely still feels like Metal Slug, even down to the gameplay, which really creatively you get more resources in the game by moving around a lot. You get like points of damage reduction and points that you use for your skills, and you generate more of those the more your unit moves on the map. And this really simulates the run and gun nature of Metal Slug, where you're not really staying still usually, with a bonus of this making it very different from a lot of turn-based tactics games, which might favor a more kind of defensive turtling tactic. But in this game, you are basically constantly moving your guys, and a lot of the scenarios also support that gameplay loop. So it's like a very unique experience for a tactics game, I feel like.
Oh, nice.
There's a couple of points that drag it down a little bit. I noticed that they don't have random maps. They have a large pool of maps, but after I died once and I booted up another like playthrough, I noticed that the first two maps I played were something that I did in my previous loop, and that kind of dampened the experience a little bit. To have to just do the same missions with like same map layout, and maybe even like the enemy layout was kind of similar as too. I was like, that kind of took the magic away a little bit. Thankfully, like after those two missions in that gameplay loop, I didn't really like see the same maps again. So like they've got a big pool of maps, but you got to be aware that like if you play this game a long time, you're going to see the same scenarios clearly. So, take that into account.
All right.
It's also a surprisingly easy roguelike. I won my first run on my second attempt. Now, there are more difficulty choices, and like to get the true ending, you need to play, I think it's at least 3 loops of the game. So, but that might also like affect, like it's not actually mega challenging on basic difficulty, and you do have to do a lot of repeating, on top of just playing through a run. The variety comes again from the various characters you unlock and their different gameplay styles and how they synergize. But, these hiccups aside, it's a shockingly well-polished and rewarding turn-based tactics game. I think it's the tactics choice this year, as far as I can tell.
Sweet.
Good stuff. So, how about you? Why don't you tell us about your number 3 choice?
Number 3 is a game that I did not expect to love this much. And
okay.
Like, I knew that I would probably enjoy it. And then I ended up, binging through it again in a couple of long sessions. I think they were like 8-hour sessions. It is Astrobot.
Oh, Astrobot. Right, of course. It is a surprise because it just, I think the Astro stuff so far has been nice, but not mind-blowing. And I think that's what people expected from this one, too.
Yeah, and then like in a year where we don't get a new Mario platformer, we get one of the greatest platforming games ever made that isn't a Mario title.
That's wild.
Yeah, so it's really weird because like superficially it should be everything that I dislike, because it is a giant advertisement for PlayStation. It's it's the new PlayStation mascot going around rescuing other classic PlayStation characters who are in these cutesy chibi forms.
Yeah.
Through themed levels from throughout PlayStation's history. It should be really crass and really commercial, and instead it's surprisingly emotional and fun and wholesome and just a incredibly well made platforming adventure game that like had me multiple times just sitting there going like, I can't believe how well designed this is on a level, like every level, from the controls to the level design to the how well the characters interact with one another, and the fact that it's constantly challenging, but it's not too hard, but at the same time there's a lot to do, and it's the perfect length of a game. By the time I was done, I 100%ed the whole thing, and I it's like having a really great fulfilling meal that you don't want anything to be taken out or anything to put in. It's just perfect.
Yeah, and I'll comment really quickly on the whole sort of advertising aspect or thereof, on it. Like I've heard that yes, the PlayStation 5 shilling is a little bit palpable with like how many PlayStation 5 peripherals keep showing up as part of the story and the gameplay. But all the like cameos to past PlayStation games, I've heard that they're actually they're not super, intrusive in trying to like sell you on them. It's almost like a trivia round of you trying to like recognize what all these like past characters are and what's being referenced. And it's like, it feels more like for someone who's played a lot of PlayStation game, it's like a rewarding activity rather than being like, the Kratos guy shows up and then like, some kind of like notice of Kratos featured in God of War and God of War Ragnarok now available on PS5. Like it's not like that. It's like you notice like here's this character with this these red tattoos and this manly beard. Oh, I know who that is. That kind of vibe.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and like even the whole thing that your character is travels around on a big PlayStation 5 and you have to fix it.
Yeah.
But even that it's made with so much joy and so much charm that I found myself really not caring, about all the other stuff. So it's like you said, it's trivia. It's for the people like who have been around for most of this, and if it is, in a way celebrating commercialism, it's also celebrating the artistic quality of what these titles mean to us.
Yeah, because a lot of these that are clearly made, as for profit products, still have like really passionate people working in them who like care about it as a form of art.
Yeah. And this is also my second favorite soundtrack of the year. Absolutely, like just banger after banger of really great music. If you get a chance to listen to it, do. It is just crazy good soundtrack. And there's only one soundtrack above this, and it's just the competition was very tough to the top.
Interesting. Like I haven't listened to the soundtrack, but I'll have to take a look a listen at it. Does it have like musical throwbacks to PlayStation history as well?
So
is there, like,
much,
leitmotifs?
yeah.
Oh, that's really fun because there's some really great music in PlayStation history.
I think if you're a fan of old school PlayStation music, you're gonna love this even more because it's a lot of that. It's a really like a labor of love of all the things that make PlayStation and the games so recognizable.
It sounds like it's almost now a bit of an analog to how like what a celebration Super Smash Brothers is of like Nintendo stuff, because that's got the triumphant arrangements of classic Nintendo tunes and everything, and gameplay isn't the same, but the feel sounds like they nailed it to be similar.
Oh yeah, and this is one of those games that I do hope that they, even though it's a PlayStation celebration, I do hope they port it to the PC because it is also such a good platformer game that I would really want everybody to be able to experience it.
I'm hoping for that. Yeah, let's hope for that. Cool. That was your number 3 then, yeah?
Yeah.
So, how about you tell us what your number 2 is?
Number 2 is Like a Dragon: Infinite Wealth.
Oh, cool. Oh, that's awesome that this got this big on your list.
I mean, I already love the Like a Dragon games, and I've been going through all the titles that I have from the beginning. So I started with Like a Dragon 0, I've gone to Kiwami 2, and just like going through them, and even the side stuff like Ishin, and then the zombie game that they made, which was a really weird one.
Oh yeah, after the end, I think. Yeah.
Yes, which is a really, really baffling side story, but yeah, I'm going through all of them, and I really just I love this series, and I was really kind of worried because when Like a Dragon came out, I was happy that they finally got a new lead character with Ichiban.
Yeah.
Because as much as I like Kazuya or Kiryu so much, it started getting to the point of how many times can you bring this poor guy in and just have more horrible shit happen to him?
And gameplay-wise, how much new bells and whistles can you come up for him when he's already got, like, this giant moveset?
Exactly. And as much as I like those, I was really kind of hoping that now we're going to just have Ichiban. So when they kind of started teasing that, oh no, we're going to have the two guys go on an adventure together, I was a little worried.
Yeah. Because I remember that the trailers, Kiryu with his new beanie and silver hair look, a fascinating, interesting take.
Yeah, and then I imagine my surprise when instead of a old guys going on an adventure together and everybody ignoring, their age and stuff like that, it becomes this really, really emotional discussion about aging and aging gracefully and accepting that, not every life can be lived perfectly because you can't understand what you're doing until you are, well into the future and you can look at the past and go, oh, right, I made mistakes.
Yeah.
And just a really great, and it's still a Like a Dragon game, which means that it's really, really fucking silly. Like you have an entire side plot of finding or helping your pet lobster find a girlfriend or boyfriend. So it's really silly. But then you have like really, really great moments, like Kiryu's entire story, which really felt like that they're finally wrapping it up and allowing him to retire gracefully as a character. It was surprisingly, like, I was really torn up about it and how well it was made.
Okay,
and there's
interesting.
So much fan service, like all the characters you could imagine start coming together and coming back for like one round, and it's also just a good game. Like, they've updated the mechanics from Like a Dragon to be even better. Like, I would say this is the best the combat has been in the series ever.
Which is fascinating because it's only the second time they do the whole RPG thing, but
yeah, but they really finally like understood where like the balance lies, and then the fact that you can break the game itself by bringing in Kiryu there, and then Kiryu can play just like he used to play in the previous Yakuza title or the Like a Dragon titles.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Interesting.
Yeah, so it's a really fun kind of subversion of like that. It keeps toying with itself even when it's toying with the very foundational mechanics of the game.
Fascinating.
And it's just well written, and it's so lovely to be able to just like hang out with this crew of characters you've known for almost 20 years, and it's nice to see how I think the developers even said that they don't have any interest in making a game about younger guys because they're all middle-aged guys, and they're going to make games about middle-aged guys doing middle-aged guy shit.
Well, right, what you know about.
Yeah, so there's a lot of very warm and good-natured ribbing in seeing Kiryu and Ichiban singing, we're breaking the law together on
from
karaoke.
Yakuza 0. Yeah.
Yeah, and like slightly off-key singing that together, and like seeing the kind of mental images that they conjure up of themselves being rock stars when they're really not.
Yeah, that's delightful.
Yeah, so I really loved it. I'm so excited that we are getting a Goro Majima spin-off next year with
random
Yakuza in Hawaii. Yes, because
Well,
it just shows that the series is gonna be silly no matter what. But as a act of showing that we are going to be different, we're going to be trying different things, and we're still going to remember that this is in the end a very humane series. I think this was one of the best Yakuza or Like a Dragon games. I keep saying the Yakuza game because it's not Yakuza, it's Like a Dragon.
It's only been like two games now that have like switched the name, so it's understandable to fall back to that.
It's like, we're going to be calling it Ryoga Gotoku from now on, making it really difficult for ourselves.
Make it even more authentic.
Yeah, but Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, one of my favorite games this year, and just a superb role-playing game from start to finish.
That sounds incredible. Unfortunately, I've made the commitment to play those games, in sort of kind of order. So I'll be looking forward to that sometime in 2035 or something. But, in the meantime, very happy to hear that the series is still doing well.
Yes.
Good stuff. And really quickly, is Kiwami 2 good? Because you just said you've played it recently. Because that's the one I have next on my to play through.
Yeah, I really liked Kiwami 2 quite a bit.
Okay.
Like I like all of them, like more or less. But the Kiwami 2 was really good because it's using the new Dragon game engine from Like a Dragon 6.
Yeah.
So it feels a lot better to play than Kiwami 1, because Kiwami 1 still had the old stuff, and you could tell that some of that had not aged really well.
I made a really good decision when I decided not to play Kiwami 1 right after I played 0, because it was just the same engine, but like the gameplay was not implemented as well. So like while I had an okay time with Kiwami 1, if I had played it right away, I would have been super burned out on this series.
Yeah, because when I went back to playing them, I went from 0 to Kiwami 1, and I was just like, oh, there's that drop.
Basically.
Kiwami has a great story, but the gameplay is kind of rough.
Yeah. Every boss is such a frustration with their like super armor on their moves. I don't know, like I wouldn't play that again very soon.
No, it's a shame because like in terms of story and in terms of like the characters, I really love Kiwami. It's got like I love the whole Goro following you around and trying to learn from or bring you back to the Dragon of Dojima.
That was cute. Kind of
yeah, that kind of stuff is fun, but it's just like goodness gracious that there's a lot of stuff in there that did not age well.
Yeah. Well.
But Kiwami 2 is way better on that front.
I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully I'll get to that soon on the channel.
Yeah. Oh, how about you?
Yeah, my number 2 then. Well, I'm going to bring back a game you already mentioned a while ago, which is why I was pretty mum on it. Tekken 8. I would say it's my second favorite game this year.
Nice.
It's a big swing, I suppose, because I'm such a like surface level enjoyer of fighting games. I've never even put the time to like. I haven't even really gotten into that mindset of like how you like really appreciate them, which is so central when I hear, people in the fighting game community, like how like, really transformative the experience is to play these games. But for what it's worth, like Tekken 8 is still one of the best in the genre that I feel like it's so beautifully done. It's interesting gameplay. Tekken is a hard one to get into because like there's just a giant move list that's a little unintuitive to figure out like what you should focus on and like how the moves interact. But it's still somehow it just is really compelling to like figure that shit out. So I put a lot of time into Tekken 8 at the start of the year. And had a really good time, learning it. And, all these classic characters, it was a delight to see them. And since we've been talking about soundtracks, I think this one might be my soundtrack pick of the year. So much like really cool, high, bouncing EDM that like really gets the like energy of a fighting game. Yeah, it just fits it to a T, the like bouncing music here. Oh yeah, and something we couldn't talk about in our original playthrough, because I hadn't played it yet, but I'm happy to report that the story mode for 8, the main story, is really good.
It is.
I'm happy to say that, because 7, the previous one, it's entertaining, but I wouldn't say it's very good. It's kind of a why was this made kind of deal, the story in 7. 8, It's a functional story with really good, like, beats and, like, setups and conclusions. It's not a very unique story or, like, original. It doesn't, like, provide, like, crazy introspection. But as a fan service engine, and I mean, like, not like, sexy fan service. I mean just, fans of the series. It, like, understands the assignment entirely in making an effort for pretty much every character to do something cool and get featured in some cool way in the narrative. And I think for a fighting game, that's incredibly important that, like, you can be a fan of any character of the roster, and you can have a moment in the main story where you're like, hell yeah, that's my guy being awesome. And if you're a fan of Claudio or Zafina, those are the only two characters you're pretty shortchanged by the main story. They didn't get written really good parts in it. Everybody else, I think, gets a really cool feature moment where you get to feel good about that character being on the screen. So I think that's a tremendous achievement for a fighting game story.
I will also mention that it features one of my favorite ridiculous characters of the year in Victor Chevalier.
Oh yeah, your favorite.
Who is just such a ridiculously stupid character, but I really, really love him.
Yeah, he's like the head of the UN Special Forces, and he's also a French ninja man.
Yeah, super spy from a royal French knight lineage, and like the Grandmaster of the Raven unit, stuff like that.
Just... Yeah. So the freaking ninjas who have been for like years in Tekken, he's like their boss. This hoity-toity Frenchman. Yeah, incredible choices on characters.
Yeah, he's got got a teleportation ability. He's got a weaponized pistol, grenades, and a sheath katana in his walking stick. It's just
Yeah, they went maximum Tekken on this guy. It's fantastic.
Deliciously stupid. I love him so much.
Yeah, and he's really good in the main campaign. I'm like, really, when he gets to shine, he really gets to shine.
Oh yeah, just a lot of fun. And Vincent Cassel doing the voice.
Yeah.
So I really, really liked him.
Yeah. I will say one thing that I think when you talked in your like a dragon discussion about the risks of just bringing back the old guy and just like the warming up the old act again. I am a little bit worried that Street Fighter 6 and Tekken 8 have both gone back in DLC of bringing back the previous main bad guy, when they seem to be like making a real effort at a clean break of moving the narrative along, because M. Bison showed up in the Tekken Street Fighter 6 DLC, and now Heihachi came back from the dead for the Tekken 8 DLC. And those are fan-favorite characters, so obviously I understand why they're brought back. But, as someone who actually does appreciate the narrative, it does feel a little bit of like, dang it, we were going to try and move on from this character, and we got to bring them back so soon? Oh, man.
Yeah. I was not a fan of Street Fighter 6 bringing back Bison, and I, was not a fan of Heihachi either coming back, because that's, yeah. The good thing about finality adds a lot of bittersweetness to things, and I think that it makes them richer, because when you know that this is not going to come back, you value the other stuff much more. Yeah, and I ripped on Tekken 7's story campaign, but like its one amazing part is Heihachi's final moments. That's like a legitimately good part in that story, and now he's back and cackling like a maniac, in the DLC trailer, like okie dokie. Again, it's like he looked super hype gameplay wise, and like Heihachi is cool, so on a surface level I get it, but like there was a really cool setup for the new villain being Heihachi's daughter. And it's like, whoa, okay, here's like this character who has Heihachi's moves incorporated in a more looser, like kick-based gameplay that like befits a svelte woman. Like that's interesting on multiple layers. And now we got to deal with, well, what if Heihachi comes back anyway? And how does that fit in with this new character? Yeah. Bit of a shame. But, well, still good. That's me complaining about the DLC, ultimately. So, real Tekken 8, freaking solid fighting game. Oh, yeah. And then we come up to our number one games of the year. And I guess I'm up first then, huh? Yep, go for it. Well, actually, if it's okay, I would like to do a really quick movie review here before we get to the game. Ooh, okay. Completely apropos of nothing, I would like to talk really quickly. This year, for the first time, I watched Andrei Tarkovsky's seminal classic, Stalker. Ah. You may have heard of this movie from, like, 78, I think. Yeah, we actually also watched it again. We showed it to a friend of ours who had not seen it.
Okay, so it's fresh on your mind as well.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll say really quickly about Stalker, the movie. I knew it wasn't obviously going to be action-packed the same way as the video games inspired by it, but it still, was really an interesting experience to watch such a slow and kind of contentless thing, like such a like a narrative just is a road trip for three people who don't do a lot. It's just tour an interesting environment. But it's got a really interesting, unique energy to it, much like everything related to Stalker, really. It has its own world going on here. And it is really lovely to look at. And it's got like a pretty cool conclusion with what it all builds up to. So I was pretty thrilled, even if it was like, oh, wow, a 3-hour movie of like this, huh? Like it was pretty gripping. I enjoyed it.
I can kind of guess where you're going to go with this.
Yeah, I'll jump to that. Although I will say one thing, what's the most terrifying thing about that movie, which wasn't particularly scary?
No, what?
It's knowing the context of how the movie was filmed, which is that they filmed at some abandoned chemical plant in Estonia, and there was like a bunch of, poisonous water all over the place and chemicals in the environment, and like Andrei Tarkovsky himself died of like cancer that's believed to be due to this film. It is terrifying watching that film and how people are wandering around in these like mucky waters and like fetid looking places, just thinking about how contaminated that is in real life. It's pretty uncomfortable.
Yeah, because it was, I think it was like abandoned hydropower plants.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, in like northern Estonia somewhere. So like pretty close to the Gulf of Finland.
Yeah, there's that element too of like that's pretty close to home. Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, but okay, as you may have guessed, of course, because of this, I was watching it in preparation of the release of Stalker 2, and that game was sock blow offy. So it is my number one choice for the best game this year.
Oh, nice.
And, this is massive, personal bias, multiplier here. But, the first Stalker was like a really unique and defining experience for me. And I'm always going to be like a little bit hyped for this series. But I think despite all that, this realization of the franchise in this modern day is about as perfect as it could be, with the small caveat of the incredibly buggy release that it has been. Now, I've been happy to report that I haven't had a ton of bugs that I've encountered yet, but it's all over the internet, so clearly you can have some poor luck with that. There's been plenty of patches coming out now, so I think that will have improved it. The one major bug that I think has been really funny, honestly, is that whenever you talk to somebody on the radio, I've had it sometimes where the radio filter just disappears, so suddenly it sounds like they're just standing next to me when they're talking. But that's just mainly funny, honestly. There's people who defended the original Stalker and its bugginess say that it kind of adds to the broken nature of the world to have the game itself be so freaking like janky and broken. I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that, but it's a funny concept, and it's a little bit here in Stalker 2 as well. But, the actual gameplay, it's Stalker again in this day and age, now with production values up the wazoo. Like, it's incredibly beautiful, even in all its, destroyed glory, the zone in Ukraine. It's shockingly beautiful views for such a bleak world. And the gameplay is as uncompromising as the original game. So it's like, you gotta inventory manage, deal with weight, and like you die very easily, but enemies are also easy to kill if you can just like get the drop on them. Like I've had like crazy actual firefights where I've had to retreat. Not something I do super often in a video games. Usually you're in a power fantasy, but like I've had to like run on my heels and get to cover inside a building and like run around between windows to like pop the guys trying to like shoot me down, and there's like this formation of soldiers like coming down on the building like in a semicircle to like pin me down. that's like a really raw but authentic experience. And it's incredible that this game lets me like feel something like that. And coupled, again, presentation's amazing. Like, I didn't expect that, like, I'd be, because the first game is very simulationist, so there's not a ton of cutscenes. You have a silent protagonist. It's, very straightforward. This one has got some, like, really fun, like, cutscenes with, like, crazy action. There's, like, a fist fight that happens in a cutscene in first person that was actually really fun to watch. Like you and this guy throwing each other around with like combat moves. It was kind of fun, honestly. And like the voice acting is surprisingly good, even in English. Not super good at Ukrainians, but it sounds fine in Ukrainian as well. It's an interesting story with like a really good hook at the start, where this guy, an artifact from the zone blows up half his house, so he's got to go investigate it. And he immediately gets robbed, so it's like a classic setup for a story, but it's really compelling. And the world is as interesting with its, various factions and like mysteries to solve as it's always been. It's basically anything a Stalker fan could ask for. So this was very much as soon as I got to playing it, I was like, this is probably going to be my number one. And after a few more hours of playing, I can't put it below number one on my list of games.
Nice. I have not played it yet.
Okay.
I did not get a review copy, and honestly, it got swamped by all the other stuff that was happening at the same time.
It came at a really busy time. I understand that.
Yeah, and then also because it has been so broken upon release that I figured that I'm going to wait until we get like some word that it's fixed now and that it's actually going to be working more solidly.
Yeah, so, it's the dream of Eurojank is like the developers are shooting super high, so depending on how much you are interested in what they're going for and how much you're willing to forgive of like then how everything to the side kind of breaks down, that will affect like how do you jump onto that. But thankfully, I'd say now that we live in this era of updating games, I think this one will become a better experience in the near future.
Yeah, I hope so. And I'm gonna, I'll probably get to it sometime early next year.
Okay, look forward to hear what you think of it at that point.
Yeah, I really like the original Stalker games, 20 years ago.
Yeah, almost.
So, yes, so I look forward to this, and I remember I did a preview of this back at Gamescom, and I really liked what I saw there. So hopefully, fingers crossed.
It has met my expectations, even as a fan of the series so far.
Yeah, so sweet.
Yeah. All right, but now let's hear what could be your number one game of the year.
I don't think it's a surprise, and I don't think that it's going to be a surprise to anybody who has listened to these in the past.
Yeah, let's go.
My number one game of the year is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear this, and this was indeed my guess when I mused that this year I'd know it, and I'm super happy that it's the case, that this is the number one.
Yeah, because like Final Fantasy has been always my big franchise. That's been the one that I've loved from the very beginning. It was one of the first ones that I played. Final Fantasy VII got me studying Japanese. It's I don't remember a time when Final Fantasy was not in my life.
Yeah.
So it's a huge thing for me, and I was really worried when they announced that they're going to do Final Fantasy VII remake, because I was thinking that there's no point in this. It's just pointless nostalgia to do all this again when you could be making new games. And then remake hits, and we realized that, they might be doing something other than just remaking things.
Yeah, they're really cooking with this one.
Yeah, and then Rebirth comes along, and I remember I sat down, I got the review copy, and I was really worried about it. I was like, about this time, last year when I got the review copies, just at the end of the year, so I was coming out of the Christmas break, and I remember it starts off really hectic, and I'm thinking, oh God, like, what is going on here? Like, is this, like, did they actually screw it up now, like, already in this early stage? And the further the game got, and the more assured it was of itself, I realized that this is something special. This is like it's both a remake, a reboot, a sequel, a huge discussion about the nature of not just the game and the games itself, but like there's a lot of talk of like memory of time and the elusiveness of time, the identity throughout time. Just really big questions in a game that is still ostensibly a let's go kill God kind of game.
Yeah.
And it's just really well made. The world is absolutely staggering in its beauty. Like I spent over 100 hours playing through Rebirth, and a lot of that was me just wandering around because it felt like I was on an adventure. It felt the way that I remember the original Part 7 feeling when I played it as a kid. Like, you don't see the pixel graphics when you're a kid. You see what your imagination wants to see, and this captured that sensation perfectly.
Which is about the most important thing this kind of project, has to do. Yeah. So that's super good that they realized it.
Yeah, and absolutely stunning voice acting, and that's also a difficult thing because like I've had these characters' voices in my head for almost 30 years as I've imagined them, and then having to bring in actors to voice them was really daunting. And I was so happy that each one of them absolutely kills it. Like Cody Christian as Cloud is fantastic, and Britt Baron as Tifa. And I'm really bad with the names for everybody, but Aerith's voice actor is also just, and she actually got nominated now for the part as best voice actor this year.
Oh, that's fantastic! Interesting.
Yeah, just everything about the game has been great.
Okay,
and I'm really worried that something about that maybe Part 3 won't be able to stick the landing with all these lofty goals that they've set from themselves, because
it wouldn't be the first time that happens with a multi-parter thing like this, but
yeah, and one of the great things about this has been how they've understood that we're going to go for it. We're going to make every part of these 3 games feel unique in a way how it approaches the characters, in a way how it approaches the world. And they've got like their own theme songs for each of the games. They've got like a whole thematic structure that runs through it. So it's not just we just want your money. Oh, this is just Final Fantasy. We're not going to try anything new. They're taking wild swings with these very well-known tropes. And I think that it has paid off gorgeously. Yeah, my favorite game of the year. I'm really glad that Square Enix nailed it.
And I am glad too, because obviously also incredibly important game for me, and was very, very happy with the remake. I'm glad to be wrong with my concerns, because I was, 7 Remake was such a small environment game, being in just this narrow leveled place that was Midgar, which fit the story obviously, but then that was clearly like that's how they managed to make like this big modern game look so amazing. Everything is like having fairly small environments. So I was like, but then in Final Fantasy VII, after Midgar, the world map opens up. How are they going to do such a large open setting? Are they going to be able to do that as well? And everything I've heard is that it's perfectly well implemented now. Like the Final Fantasy VII still works, or the new Final Fantasy VII gameplay still works perfectly fine, and like the environments are great to explore, even though they're not like super like tight linear spaces anymore.
Oh, absolutely. I'll give you an example that is non-spoilery, but made me realize that, oh my goodness, they nailed it. It's when you start the game and you're out of the town of Calm.
Yeah.
Right. It's like within like the first, hour.
Yeah, it's in the original game, it's the first village you go to after leaving Midgar. Yeah.
Yeah. And you get to wander around the world map, and you get the world map theme music.
Oh, sweet.
And I'm wandering around there, and I just noticed that, hey, in the far, far distance, you can actually see the clouds and the kind of light and smoke pollution of Midgar and the reactors.
Oh yeah, which makes sense because they're like fairly close to each other. So yeah.
Right. And I start heading towards it thinking that it's just going to be like a skybox. And then the closer I get, you can see the nature start dripping away, and then the world map music starts picking up little bits and pieces of Midgar's theme. And it's like it's a mixture of between those two musics, and then the music from the end of the first game, so that you get this kind of weird kind of a feeling that like you are heading back toward the past, and like that place exists in that reality. And then as you return back and you see the effects of Midgar like going away, and then the music again takes over into the world map as you're heading toward the future again. And I realized that, oh my goodness, they really understand perfectly of how it is supposed to feel.
That's
and
amazing.
Every area of the game gets the same kind of love and care. Like every time you start approaching a place that you might recognize, the soundtrack, which is my favorite soundtrack of the year.
Okay.
It does so much with what you would expect it to do, and then so much with the new things that I did not even realize that I wanted. And I didn't think that anybody could go and like do a better job than Nobuo Uematsu. And instead, what they've done is that they've just taken everything that Uematsu had created and they build on it instead of just overriding it.
Yeah, well, I thought interesting was about the previous part, Remake, was that they kind of had like a big selection of artists arranging both, arrangements of Uematsu's music and also original like music, which I think was an interesting choice of like, we can't find any one person to surpass the original soundtrack by Uematsu. So let's like make like this kind of best of Japanese composers, like making their own like, contributions to it. So, if it's similar in this one, then that sounds really good.
Yeah, absolutely. So once you get to play it, I really want to hear what you think about it, because I love that it's great all around, and I hope that everybody gets a chance to have fun with it.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be just like when Remake finally came on PC on Steam. Like it's gonna be on a short list to show up on the channel once the inevitable PC release becomes a reality. So everybody can look forward to that as well.
Yep, so waiting for that then.
I had to really quickly go back to the voice actor topic. Did you see the really charming video of Matt Mercer in the voice acting booth for Rebirth?
When he finds out that he's been cast as Vincent?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it like comes into image because he thinks he's recording, bit NPCs, unnamed NPC lines. And like then like, the screen fritzes out and now he's voicing Vincent all of a sudden, his reaction. Oh, it's beautiful because Matt Mercer, not just a great voice actor, not just a great dungeon master and writer of RPGs, is also a giant nerd and has cosplayed Vincent like in his past years. So like he read to be Sephiroth in Remake. He didn't get the part. It went to Tyler Hoechlin. Anyway, and he was like, dang it. So when he got this like opportunity to voice, random NPCs in Rebirth, he was like, well, it's the best, I can expect. So, it's better than nothing. I get to still be a part of this. And he got in there. So then, the drop that he's actually going to be Vincent, it's like, culmination of his career in some way.
Well, that's really cool. I didn't know that he had actually cosplayed as Vincent.
Yeah, he is a certified Final Fantasy fan himself, so it's very appropriate that he gets to show up in this cast.
Yeah, and that's really nice, and he's really great. He doesn't have a lot to do yet.
I can imagine. Yeah, he shows up probably fairly late in the narrative.
Yeah, and it's like him and Sid are kind of there as these are the new guys, but their game is then part 3. Yeah. That's going to be where they get to shine.
Yeah, I heard that it's a situation like Red was in the first part, that he's not playable, or Red wasn't playable in the previous one. He was just an NPC in your party, or a controllable character. So I think it's the same with Sid and Vincent in this Rebirth.
Yes, but then like with Red, he gets a huge part in this game, and he is one of the great parts of the Rebirth, and I'm really glad that they also nailed him perfectly.
And Sid and Vincent should have some big moments in the finale, assuming it still tracks the plot of the original, so it should be really great.
I really hope so, because I look for Rocket Town was one of my favorite parts of the original game, so I look forward to the story of that coming in a bigger way in this new, or hopefully whatever comes in, not next year, we're not that fast, but they have been talking that 2026, 2027 would be likely.
Okay. Oh man, a long time, but
couple years.
We'll be hopeful. Wow, hey, that was it. That was our best of 2024. It was a pretty great list from both of us, I'd say.
I'd say, yeah, and I mean that's not even counting all the stuff that we missed or that we just haven't had a chance to talk about or play yet, because it was a surprisingly packed year.
Yeah, like this week, I just now heard that like this game Locomotive is apparently a throwback to like classic LucasArts adventures, and like actual LucasArts people have been like mentioning how great it is, and I was like, oh man, I haven't had a chance to play that yet. That sounds exactly up my alley.
Oh yeah,
stuff like that has been happening a lot.
Yep. And just to kind of get an idea of like how good of a year it is, I'm gonna really quickly just rattle off without explaining anything the 10 to 20
oh
that
yeah
I had.
Please
just
do. Go right ahead.
Rise of the Ronin, Satisfactory, Frostpunk 2, Final Fantasy XIV Dawn Trail, Indica, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree, Dragon Age The Veilguard, Mario Party Jamboree, Star Wars Outlaws, and Indiana Jones and the Great Circle.
Oh yeah, lots of stuff there, which would be pretty good. I imagine those are some good stuff I've heard from a lot of those.
Yeah, like any other year, that would probably already be the top 5 or the top 10 of like other games. And then this year they're like, well, they just can't quite make it into the top 10.
Crazy stuff.
Yeah, so just there is no shortage of games. And from what I'm looking at next year, it's going to be insane because like I already did a couple of previews of some of the games that I'm waiting for. We have a new Monster Hunter title coming out.
Oh yeah,
we've got the new Like a Dragon coming out. We have a couple of unannounced titles that are going to be coming out. We're going to hear about them at the Game Awards shows next week or whenever this is already coming out. And it's just, I think that if this year was big, then next year, because we have the new Hideo Kojima game. We got a new Metroid.
Oh yeah.
We will most likely have a new Nintendo console because it's now pretty clear that it is.
Seems like it's going to happen.
We have a new Mafia game, Mafia: The Old Country.
I didn't even know there's a new Mafia game coming out.
Yeah, we have a new Fable.
That too. Yeah.
Professor Layton is coming back.
Hell yeah.
There's a new Pokemon coming out. There's a Vampire the Masquerade coming out. There's Ghost of Yotei, which is the sequel to Ghost of Tsushima.
That looks pretty good.
And then there's the really great-looking Clair Obscure Expedition 33, which I got to see at Gamescom, that has a really stacked cast, including Andy Serkis in it. That looks really, really great.
And it's also fascinating.
Yeah, so I think next year is going to be pretty fucking insane, and that's only considering that that's the start of the year. That's not even what we haven't got announced yet, and not the fact that we have Grand Theft Auto 6 coming out at the end of the year.
Yeah, damn. So I guess we'll be playing games next year as well then, is the...
I think so. I don't think we're stopping gameplay just yet.
Yeah, well, hopefully not.
Hopefully not.
We'd be missing out on a lot if we did.
Yeah, and also just, in case there's any co-op stuff we want to do, Star Wars Jedi Power Battles is finally getting a remaster and it's coming onto Steam.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, the side-scrolling thing, yeah?
Yeah, side-scrolling, the two-player co-op where you just pick your favorite Jedi Masters and go to town on a bunch of droids.
Oh, yeah, that is actually a great choice for a game to get remastered, yeah.
Yeah, and that's actually very soon, January 23rd, I think.
Oh, sweet.
So, yeah, we have a good start for a year.
Fantastic. Oh, and I have to, of course, call out, in terms of remasters, the one game that had not been ported from the Wii U to the Switch. It's a bit sad because it was really providing a lot of value to the Wii U, but now Xenoblade Chronicles X will be coming on the Switch as a bit of a swan song to the original Switch, and I'm really, really primed for that.
When is that coming out?
Sometime in spring.
Oh, wow.
Can't remember off the top of my head, but it has been announced. It is a reality. It is happening at last. Very good.
Well, that is exciting because I didn't play that because I didn't have a Wii U, so yeah. I'm excited.
Same with me. I have tried it, and I know it would be exactly the kind of game I like, so it has been a long time coming to get it on the Switch at last. So yeah, just another one to look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I think the big one I'm looking forward to, there's two, and both are in February. No, there's 3 in February that I'm actually looking forward to. That's, 4. Shit. Oh my god. Okay. All right, so I'm looking at the release list.
Yeah.
And this is just February, which is already a short month. Civilization 7.
Oh, yeah.
Kingdom Come 2 Deliverance. Assassin's Creed Shadows.
Oh.
Followed by Avowed, which is from the guys who made Fallout New Vegas.
Yeah. They made Outer Worlds, was there like Fallout kind of like, and now this is going to be some kind of Elder Scrolls-y throwback?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then followed by Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii.
All right.
And followed by Monster Hunter Wilds.
Okay, that's a lot of stuff. I think we're probably going to have an episode in February or March, based on simply the odds of we're probably going to cover something out of these choices.
Yeah, I know that I'm going to be reviewing all of these titles, but it's going to be a crazy month.
Oh, well, I wish you luck on that front because, oh my god, some of those are going to be giant efforts.
Yeah, I know that, like, at least Kingdom Come and Avowed are going to be massive-ass games.
Yeah.
And like, even though Like a Dragon is out already a year after the previous one, those guys make really big games. Like, even when they just make a spin-off game, it tends to be around 50 to 60 hours.
Basically, yeah, because they are a very efficient team, so they get a lot of bang out of their game buck.
Absolutely. But yeah, good start to a year. And hopefully it gets only better from that.
Yeah. We will keep you folks posted as well. We'll see how many episodes we can manage next year, but certainly not going to be because of a dearth of content. It won't be an obstacle to our continued podcasting efforts.
Yeah. Well, we have the bottom. We've set the bottom already, so we have 1 episode in a year. So if we can do better than that, we're well on our way.
It'll be great. All right. But hey, Jonathan, thank you for 2024 and for this episode. It's been a pleasure, as always, to recount these games.
Pleasure is all mine, and thank you.
And and everybody at home, I hope you have a nice end of the year, and I hope 25 gets off to a good start for you folks as well. We will see you all then on the other side on the new year. But for now, we're going to be closing off, so stay safe, everybody. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.